We share a history by the land here, and I think history needs to be told.
Those stories are important to tell because you don't want to forget. You want to remember those.
It's about owning our full story, and I think it's really important for Broomfield residents and Broomfield staff to know about our larger history.
The Ute people are the oldest residents of Colorado, the truest definition of Colorado native. They have thrived in Colorado, from mountain areas to the plains and foothills, for at least 1,000 years. In the late 1700s and early 1800s, pressures from the westward migration of native peoples, which stem from colonization and displacement wrought by European and then later American settlers, forced the Cheyenne and Arapaho people out of the area that is today Minnesota and the Dakotas. The Cheyenne and Arapaho became allies, and they've been tied together historically since that time. Possessing distinct cultures and languages, they nonetheless worked together to create a home here along the Front Range of Colorado. As the Cheyenne and Arapaho moved out of the Dakotas, they relied less on farming and instead used horses to hunt bison and other game animals, and to move seasonally across the wide plains and into the mountain valleys.
During that time, we had just signed the 1851 treaty, which gave us, told us that, we lived in this area, so we were home, we could stay here.
In 1851, some Cheyenne and Arapaho signed the Treaty of Fort Laramie, which recognized the Front Range and eastern plains of what is now Colorado as their sovereign land. But changes were coming quickly in the Colorado Territory. Gold was found in the Rocky Mountains in 1858, and by 1859, thousands of prospectors and settlers from all parts of the United States, as well as from other countries, had flooded into the Colorado Territory.
Within 1 year after that news got out about the gold rush, the Cheyenne and Arapaho people in this area were outnumbered 10-1.
Territorial Governor John Evans did not want the Cheyenne and Arapaho people in Colorado Territory, and saw a path to so-called progress and to statehood if they could somehow force the Cheyenne and Arapaho to leave. The Treaty of Fort Wise in 1861 relegated and confined the Cheyenne and Arapaho people to a much smaller portion of the Colorado Territory, about 1/10 of the land confirmed by the Treaty of Fort Laramie, and many Cheyenne and Arapaho people did not think the treaty was fairly negotiated. Throughout the years of the American Civil War, aggression towards the Cheyenne and Arapaho people increased, culminating in the Sand Creek Massacre in 1864. On November 29, 1864, 700 soldiers under the command of John Shivington, many of whom mustered east of Boulder at Fort Chambers, opened fire on a peaceful camp of Cheyenne and Arapaho, killing women, children, and elders. With over 230 people killed in one day, Sand Creek is the bloodiest day in Colorado history. Some soldiers, including Silas Soule and Joseph Kramer, refused to participate and reported about the unjust and criminal massacre that took place at Sand Creek. Numerous federal investigations showed that Shivington and his men had no justification for their actions. The Cheyenne and Arapaho people have not collectively returned to Colorado since the Sand Creek Massacre. The Northern Cheyenne live on a reservation near Lame Deer, Montana. The Northern Arapaho share reservation lands with the Shoshone at Wind River in Wyoming. The Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes have traditional lands and their headquarters to the west of Oklahoma City near El Reno in Oklahoma. Since 2019, individuals and groups in Broomfield, as well as the city and county of Broomfield, have worked to develop relationships with Native people living in our community, as well as with Indigenous people whose ancestors were forcibly displaced from the Front Range. Some of these events and programs include the Only the Earth and the Mountains film screening, the soil exchange ceremony at the Bruner House, the Arapaho Language and Culture Camp in Allens Park with the Teen Council, the Broomfield Out Loud program, in which we recorded oral histories, basketball friendlies between our two communities, the Indigenous Thriving Artists Panel, the open space naming of Water Runs Back, as well as the Brent Learned residency and the murals that are at 120th and 287.
When I think of Cheyenne Arapaho, I think of family and community. We tell a lot of stories orally, and that's passed on from generation to generation. You know, the buffalo, it meant everything to the Cheyenne and Arapaho. It meant food, it meant clothing, it meant housing, it meant medicine. Coming up here to Broomfield and doing the mural piece kind of pays homage to my ancestors. And not only that, but it tells the story not only of the Cheyenne and the Arapaho, but also the Colorado experience. I like to share the stories of the Cheyenne and Arapaho because we have a lot of stories to tell.
Many of these individuals, like Fred Mesquita, the language and culture coordinator for the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes, feel like they're coming home when they come to Broomfield.
And it means a lot to be here because when you come and you walk this land and you see the areas and you hear the stories and the history of it, it just feels very comfortable, very home-like, you know. Then I can look at it and I imagine what my ancestors or my forefathers were doing here, walking the same land. And we began to talk about how, you know, Broomfield and the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribe could do things together. Then we began to visit each other, and as we visited each other, we shared commonalities among ourselves.
With the Broomfield Sister Cities program, it's about common memory. So the most important part of our relationship with the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes is really just the building of relationships. And our biggest event that we've done together is our official signing ceremony.
On March 22nd, 2025, the mayor of Broomfield, Guyleen Castriata, and the governor of the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes, Reggie Wasini, signed a Sister City agreement, forging a new path forward between the two communities. In April 2025, a group of Broomfield Teen Council members stopped at Sand Creek on their way to Oklahoma.
These aren't nameless faces, these aren't nameless places. We are there and we are able to connect with them, and we understand that these are real people just like us and that we are more similar than we are different.
I think that we learn a lot about the history of certain things that happened with Native Americans, and this trip allowed me to kind of put that into place and see that something that actually happened to these people, and I thought that was something that's really gonna sit with me for a while.
Once the Teen Council arrived in Oklahoma, they were warmly welcomed by Fred Mesquita and Frank Medicine Water and their families. During the visit, the teens met with the Cheyenne and Arapaho Tribes Teen Council, toured historic areas near the headquarters in Concho, and attended a powwow.
We were very welcome there, very loved. We even got some gifts, which was very nice. And I really just think it's a beautiful connection that Broomfield has with them, and I think that making these strong connections with them can really help us understand each other more.
This is Water Runs Back open space. With this site, we had a request from our advisory committee when we acquired the property to have a name that has Indigenous ties. And so with that, we needed to make sure we had a relationship with our tribal partners first. And we were out on site and talking with our tribal partners and explaining, like, here's a couple interesting features of the site, including community ditch, which looks like it runs back towards the mountains. One of our tribal partners kind of leaned back on his heels and he was like, well, I think you should name the property Water Runs Back. And from there, we were able to officially adopt the name Water Runs Back Open Space for this beautiful site behind me.
Oftentimes, the episodes about the displacement of Native people are left out of our common histories that we share. Recognizing, acknowledging, and working to find a better way in light of our past.
And their story of resilience and how they continue to move forward, they continue to tell stories, and they continue to hold these memories with them while also creating new ones.
We're hoping that this place can be a point of connection, a point of healing for everyone. As the Broomfield community, this is something where we can learn how to address our shared history, however painful that is, and create new history together.
Our relationship with the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes is part of the deep equity work that Broomfield is committed to. Understanding both the pain and triumphs of the past and present through listening to our new friends and partners from the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes helps us to forge a more hopeful and just future as a community.
Seeing community leaders come together, focused on restoring relationships and remembering the history of our country so that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past is hugely important. This is the sort of work that makes Broomfield special. It grows our empathy and understanding in countless ways.
As people drive by, hopefully they think that, hey, this used to be Indian land, and those were the people that used to be here, and they should move you in a way to where you're like, hey, we're all in it together. There is no me, it's we.
But that's the way the Arapaho are, you know, to this day too. We're still open, we're very, very friendly. We were called, you know, traders by, you know, the other tribes because we would move between the tribes to trade. We share a history by the land here. By preserving history and telling that history, I believe people will begin to know who we are